What's going on, guys? It is MurderInc here, back with another Raid Shadow Legends video, and today we're going to be talking about attack down for the clan boss on the A1, reviewing all of the champions that really stand out to give you the best idea on which champions you can use, which champions you might not want to use, all of this based on the roster you have in front of you on your accounts. So let's get right into it. As you can see here, I do have a spreadsheet on the screen. Hopefully it's not too small for you. I will have all of the spreadsheets from all of the videos that I do in my Discord. I'll leave a link in the pinned comment below in this video, so you can always have access to them if you want to consider this. There's actually a lot here, so I'm going to go over it as quick as possible to try and not make the video too long. Most of these champions I've played with a lot and can speak pretty freely on them. Some of them I will be going and referring to the index because some of them are newer and are a bit more intricate than meets the eye, especially when I want to kind of go over the final thoughts for these champions. So let's start off with the champion Tayrel. We do have the attack down on the A1 ability, defense down on the A2, and that turn meter down that won't affect the clan boss, but it does get prioritized in the AI system, unfortunately, over that A2 because for some reason they haven't altered every single champion to ignore the clan boss's turn meter, and hopefully we'll get some more fixes on that in the future. So for Tayrel here, as you can see from this chart here, I do have a champion list. I do have the hit count, meaning however many hits their A1 actually does to the target, the percentage chance to land booked first and then unbooked, the strengths of the champion, the weaknesses of the champion. This is all my opinion. You can determine for yourself as far as strengths and weaknesses, because it's really going to come down to a bit more than what I'm showing you here. If you have a champion that applies a buff, it might not be considered a strength, since there's no point in really overlapping on buffs if a champion you already have in your list is already using it, which is why you really do want to look at this list kind of carefully and making sure that while you are getting an attack down champion, you're getting as much benefit from his strengths in whatever kit they have, so you can make sure you're filling out your clan boss team perfectly. Moving back to Tayrel, we have a 2-hit, 50% chance once it's booked, 40% chance unbooked. From this champion you get a defense aura, high multipliers, meaning he does a significant amount of damage. You do get defense down, although like I said before, the synergy between the A2 and A3 isn't as ideal when on auto, since it's always going to prioritize that A2 ability. And the weaknesses, low percent chance to debuff. If you've been running Tayrel, I remember I did when I first started without Unkillable, and it's really unfortunate when that consistency hits you at a really bad time where he doesn't apply that attack down. Even in a counter attack teams, it's not 100% chance and you end up just wiping. It's really unfortunate. You hate to see it, but that is Tayrel. Moving on to the champion Altan here, we do have a 1-hit with a 75% chance to land once booked, 60% unbooked, high multipliers once again for incredible damage, defense up, which is awesome to have on an attack down champion. He is the best defense aura in the game that you can be using for the clan boss, and he has great base stats overall down the board. Now, as far as the weaknesses, the only weakness I would want to say is it's not 100% attack down on that chance to land, but outside of that, I would say he doesn't really have any other weaknesses worth noting on. And if you're happy with 75% once booked, those are fairly high odds, higher than Tayrel at 50 and 40, 75 to 60%. It's more likely than not that it's always going to be on the target with a counterattack team. It's very rare where you have a failing condition with this champion here, so I had to put it down just to say it was a weakness, but overall he really doesn't have any weaknesses. Next, moving on to War Mother, who has a 2-hit on the A1, 100% chance if booked or not booked. The books don't change the percent chance. So obviously her strength is going to be 100% chance to land on the A1 for an attack down. She does have the additional skill in her kit that increases bomb damage to the clan boss, or bosses in general for that matter. However, it's very hard to capitalize on this, as we can see from some of her weaknesses that I put here. She has low base stats, which don't really help the cause, and she is hard to build. When I say hard to build, what I mean by that is you have to build her with a lot of defensive stats, and as most people know, bombs scale with attack, and it's going to be very difficult for you to kind of combine defense and attack together to really get some value out of that bomb damage. But if she's your only choice, Obviously, as we can see here, having a 100% debuff chance is actually extremely strong. Now, this doesn't mean you don't need accuracy. For all of these champions, unless listed as you don't need accuracy, will require accuracy, so there's always the chance to get resisted, but straight out the gate, the fact that books don't change it and she always has the opportunity to land that attack down is rather huge. Moving on to our awesome champion, Maneater. People might be thinking, why would I have Maneater on here? Because if you have Maneater, you can make an unkillable team. Regardless, some people may not have a Painkeeper, may not have a second Maneater, so you would want to use him for an attack down, and here's why. This is a single hit champion, 100% chance, if booked, if not booked, based on this being a critical hit. So 100% conditional debuff is a very strong strength he has. He does apply the unkillable buff and the block debuffs as well, adding on to the list of strengths that this champion has. The only problem is, as we can see here, long utility cooldowns. Now I do have to check, I'm pretty sure Maneater is 7 turn cooldown when he isn't booked, 7 turn when he is, and the ATU doesn't matter. It used to matter for those of you who have been playing for quite some time, but it does not matter anymore. So 7 turn is a long time, but you don't really need that. You can actually get away with this champion and not book him at all, and it's not going to throw anything off if you just want to use him for an attack down. Moving on to Jareg, who is a very interesting champion, and I do want to talk about him because I haven't in the past pretty much at all, and I haven't really used them outside of the Affinity Cup challenge that I did a long time ago and on a free-to-play account that I did make. So he has a one-hit 60% chance once booked, 35% chance unbooked. The strengths he brings to the table are the HP Aura, Ally Protect, Defense Up, and a continuous heal passive that is definitely going to be strong. Weaknesses, he has a decent percent chance to land, a little bit higher than what I would consider low. He is hard to gear and he has low base stats. Now let's talk about for a second what I mean hard to gear. For those of you who don't know, if you do have this, you probably do understand that ally protection is a blessing and a curse. While it is strong with saving some of your attack-based champions like poisoners, it can be very dangerous, if not lethal, to the champion that's actually applying the ally protection. So the fact that ally protection is redirecting damage back to Jareg, you have to build him with very, very strong gear. One of the most common gear sets to use is Stalwart gear, but that does require healing from an outside source if you really want to be consistent, because sometimes lifesteal gear isn't ideal unless you have 100% crit and a decent amount of damage. Now, where does this fall into a problematic situation and why I said hard to gear? Jareg has an attack multiplier. Why? Don't ask me. I'm not sure why they did this. He's an HP based champion. He should have an HP multiplier, but they decided to give him an attack multiplier with very low base attack. So it's really hard to get him to full heal unless you are proccing that mastery with lifesteal and getting the value out of that. So Jareg isn't a terrible champion. He is great, but you have to make sure you're gearing him properly, which can be hard to do. Next, we have Bogwalker, who is our first rare champion on the list. We have a one-hit 50% chance when booked, 30% chance when not booked. Increased defense, this is the weak version of increased defense, and he has a reflect damage passive. Weaknesses, as you can assume, low base stats, low percent chance to debuff based on his 50% and 30% when unbooked, and the split multipliers. Now, split multipliers is something that I have no idea why Plarium, Raid, why they put this into the game. It doesn't make a lot of sense for me personally, and yeah, I really don't understand why they did that. So split multiplier is essentially labeling something with an attack and a defensive multiplier, meaning they gain benefit from both. Now, if you are curious, and I will go to Bogwalker so I can kind of break this down for you while I'm talking about it. Let's find our Forced Affinity rare lizardman friend here. So as we can see here, we do have attack and defense on this A2. Now, one awesome indicator that they did give us, even though they do have this strange system of splitting up the multiplier, is the stat multiplier that appears first will always be the higher of the two. So that is a great way to gauge a champion like Bogwalker, and more commonly someone like Painkeeper, who has split multipliers across the board from attack, defense, and HP. But one good way to find out which one's going to give you the most benefit as far as the multiplier go, it's always going to be the first one on the list here. So while he does offer benefit, getting back to our list really quick, split multipliers make it hard. If I am correct here, we have defense on the A1, which is definitely good. You want to stack defense on most of your champions, but we have attack on the A2, so there is kind of that trade-off there, whereas AoE hit, which won't matter for clan boss, but if you want to use them anywhere else, won't scale as well since you are going to be stacking defense and not attack on this champion. So the next champion we have on our list is Veteran, one of the OG attack down champions that people started using a very long time ago. He is a Void Orc, another rare on the list once again, and he is a 2-hit, 50% chance once booked, 35% chance unbooked to land that attack down. He has very high raw damage as a strength to his kit. He has good base stats, and he has block buff for those affinities if you don't want to suffer from that attack up, which can definitely kill you early if you're not careful. He's another champion that has a slightly lower chance to actually land this debuff on a target. It is a 2-hit, but still, it's really hard to justify. Nothing's as good as a 100% chance, so I do have to list that as a weakness for pretty much everybody. And once again, we have split multipliers, but one thing I do want to talk about with Veteran is why I listed him as having high damage output if you're not familiar with this kit and you do have this champion. So as we can see here, damage inflicted is proportional to defense. This is not a very common thing that we see in champions kits, and this does yield a very high damage for this champion himself. It also has the same thing in the A2, but as we saw from the list, it is a split multiplier. It also provides that increased crit rate buff on all allies, which that's only if it kills a target, so that does not apply to the clan boss. But once again, the defense and attack, it does take away too much in my opinion from this champion as far as how much damage he could really do. So now we're going to talk about the A3. This is a very hard-hitting skill. We have damage based on defense and HP, but damage increases according to this champion's max health. So there's an additional multiplier there, making him do a ton of damage. And this is also the skill that applies that block buffs debuff for 1 turn on the clan boss when you want to make sure that he isn't line that attack up. And luckily it's a 3-turn cooldown, so it definitely works out for when you want to use it as far as when the clan boss actually would gain that ability. Next champion we have here is Padma, another champion that I've seen used a lot more kind of early on into the game, not as much now. Maybe it's just because of the people I've been looking at who've been playing the game. This is a 2-hit, 100% chance once booked, 85% if not booked, also with the condition of critical hit only. So the strength being obviously once she's booked, 100% conditional debuff. She does have that buff steal with the same tactic that for the same point that I did apply to Veteran, how you can steal that attack up buff that the clan boss does get, making your runs a little bit more solid. She has great base stats here. And then as far as weaknesses goes, once again, another split multiplier champion. And I can't get over enough, and I'll probably say this 1 or 2 more times, why Plarium does this, I'm not really sure. But another weakness that Padma does have is she also provides decreased accuracy and takes up a rather valuable spot on the clan boss as far as debuffs, because you are limited to 10 and you really don't want to be wasting on something like decreased accuracy. While it can help you with having the decreased speed applied to you or the decreased accuracy applied to you from the clan boss, you really want to be loading up the clan boss with as many poisons, HP burn, defense down, weaken, and attack down, making sure you have all of those crucial buffs there first and not have to worry about a debuff like decreased accuracy unless it's part of your game plan altogether. So the next champion we have here is Crypt King Graal. We have a 1-hit, 60% chance booked or unbooked, so the books won't matter for that A1 ability. High base stats for sure, HP burn, HP aura, and one of the strengths that I did add here that I probably shouldn't have based on where I ended up going with this list, so I'm assuming this is one of the earlier champions I put on here. Booking is low value. If you have the champion and you go through his skills individually, you will see that you won't gain a ton from booking him for the clan boss, which can definitely be good if you're looking for a solid attack down champion to just throw in the roster. As far as the weaknesses, I did put NA here. Once again, this is probably one of the first champions I put on this list. Going back to it to keep it in line with the rest of them, I would say decent chance to land, not 100%, which you always want to see 100% once again. And now Nekrit the Great is the next champion we're going to talk about. And this is someone that I'm going to go through and then go to him in game because he is a rather new champion. There's kind of a lot to this guy, so I do want to explain this. We have a 3 hit count on his A1, cooldown, which is awesome. 30% chance to land once fully booked, 20% chance when not booked. And as far as strengths go, as we can see, there's a ton of them here. No accuracy needed, strong base stats, ally attack, block debuff, ally protection, strengthen, and applying a shield. Now, weaknesses requires above average gear, which is why I do want to go over him in the index with you all right now. Alright, so here we have our friend Nekrit the Great. Now, I don't have a video out on him just yet, but that is something that's going to be coming soon because he's a very intricate champion. I'm not going to give you the whole rundown of this champion, kind of just the basics here. So let's go over the A1. Attacks one enemy 3 times. Each hit has a 20% up to a 30% chance of placing that attack down. Once again, it cannot be resisted, which is fantastic. The only thing that might be concerning is the 1 turn duration on the attack down. Normally it's 2, this is 1. The fact that it's so frequent, and even though the proc rate is a little bit lower, it does apply to each hit. So overall, things balance out for it to be rather consistent. Moving on to his A2, he does have the ally attack with all allies under ally protection, which is going to ramp up over time. Grants an extra turn if it doesn't kill the target, so he's going to be getting an extra turn on top of things, which can be good or bad based on the counterattack you have up on him. You just have to make sure you're placing him early in the order of your clan boss rotation as they go per cycle to make sure that he's not burning through any crucial debuffs. Moving on to his A3 ability, we have places block debuff, ally protection, and strengthen buff on an ally for 3 turns. This protection cannot be removed, which is cool. His passive, whenever an ally is attacked under ally protection, it places a shield on the champion equal to 30% of Nekrit's maximum health for 2 turns. This is only possible if the champion in question does not have a shield on them already. Also decreases the cooldown of Legion of the Damned skill by 2 turns if the shield buff is placed, which is that ally attack. So a ton of ally attack happening here in a clan boss team. Moving on to his second passive, because 1 just wasn't enough for this awesome champion, places block debuff, strengthen for 3 turns on the ally with the lowest max HP at the start of each round. Also places a 50% ally protection buff on them for 6 turns. And that's a lot of turns. And we did just go over ally protection and what it means. So this guy is going to be under constant stress and constant strain in the clan boss. Now, he does have very high base stats, as we can see on the screen here. However, you are going to need extremely good gear to be able to keep up with this guy, making sure he's topped off once you get into those later rounds of the clan boss. The stun target is going to be getting hit, applying damage, shared damage to Nekrit. The AoEs are going to start hitting him for extremely hard, since now you're putting 6 turn ally protection buffs on everybody, not giving him any turn to kind of breathe and regain his health, unless you have an incredible healer on your team that's always going to top him off. Lifesteal gear, once again, it's kind of a questionable tactic to use to keep him topped off, because while he does hit for 3 times and he does have better odds with the Giant Slayer, you're really gambling here as far as getting topped off when using Nekrit. So that was the brief breakdown on Nekrit. Like I said, I'm going to do a in-depth champion guide on him, testing him out, showing you everything you actually need to know about the champion, but that was the basic rundown if you do have this champion already and you want to start getting an idea for how to gear this guy before I release that guide out for you. The next champion we have is Balthus Droglord. We have a single hit, 40% chance, booked, 30% unbooked. He does have good base stats, decreased crit rate, self-heal, and reflect damage, so there's kind of a lot here that he offers. Decreased crit rate as a strength is kind of another preference to the player. If you want more consistency, decreased crit rate will actually make it so the clan boss will never crit you based on the amount it's decreased in the base crit rate statistics that the clan boss actually has on its abilities, so that's good. But once again, it also could be looked at, as we can see with the asterisks in the weakness section, where you might not want that extra debuff on your team, even though it does provide a little bit more consistency. And the other weakness would be that low percent chance to debuff. Now, I do have a Balthus Droglord champion guide video out, so if you have the champion, you're curious about him, want to know more, you can definitely take a look at that guide and see if he's going to be the right fit for you in this. But he's also very strong in other content, so keep that in mind and check out that video if you haven't already. The next champion we have is Crimson Helm. We have a single hit, 50% chance once booked, 30% chance when not booked, also applying revive on death and defense up as a strength. Now, as far as the weakness goes, very low base speed, and now that I said that, I do want to check on this. Okay, so 85, very low indeed. And let's see what other notes we have here. Split A1 multiply requires a special speed tune, low percentage to land. So the low percentage, self-explanatory, requires a special speed tune. So looking at her skills, if you do want to book this champion, it's going to go to a 4-turn duration, which means you will have to use a 4-3 clan boss team composition, requiring a bit higher speeds on this champion, which isn't that bad, except for the fact that she has such low base speed. It can be very problematic for people to actually reach the speeds needed on this champion. So we do have the split multiplier, as I mentioned before, and I'm not going to get into that rant again. But outside of that, that is the basic rundown for Crimson Helm. Then we have a Sepulcher Sentinel with a single hit, 60% chance to land attack down when booked, 40% chance unbooked. We have a defense aura, strong base stats, defense up, block damage, and an awesome passive that has a chance to negate all damage done to a target. Sepulcher's kit is very strong. I do like this champion a lot. And one thing I didn't mention is she actually can hit rather hard if you gear her properly. Most people don't because they go for the tanky sustain build, but if you wanted to give her 100% crit rate, throw in some crit damage, she can actually do a ton of damage overall. As far as weaknesses, does also require that special speed tune. Once fully booked, she has a 4-turn cooldown on that defense up and block debuff, which most people use to block the affinity and the stun, or one or the other. The only other weakness that I did list is decent percent chance to land with a 60% once fully booked, 40% when not booked. Now moving on to Rector Drath, we have a single hit, 50% chance on the booked percent to land, 35% chance unbooked. She's a great healing support, reviver, strong base stats. As we just saw, low percent to debuff for the weaknesses, applies turn meter on that revive, which can really mess up any type of speed tune you do have. Now for Rector Drath, she's a very involved kit on where you can use her. Some people may elect to use her in Clan Boss, some people may not. She's a very strong kit outside of Clan Boss. She's another champion that I did a champion guide on. If you are curious about Rector Drath, definitely take a look at that and see where she's going to help you the most in your account progression. Now the final champion we're going to be talking about here today is Coffin Smasher. We have a 3-hit, 30% chance to land when booked, 15% chance when unbooked. And like I said, rare champion. In my opinion, they should add more rare champions to this list. He is a multi-hitter, so he gets the Giant Slayer benefit. He has an AoE damage reduction of 5% as his passive, which is awesome. And he also applies an HP burn, so for a rare champion, he's rather impressive. Some of the weaknesses he's going to have is low base speed and low raw damage, as he's really not going to apply a lot besides that HP burn damage and the Giant Slayer rocking. So that definitely wraps it up for Coffin Smasher. He's one of my personal favorite champions that I think not a lot of people show enough love to. I understand he doesn't have an aura, and a lot of people gravitate towards having their attack down champion as their aura champion. Since you're stacking defense on them, you're not going too crazy with the HP. And if you don't know this already, the leader aura has the highest threat you're going to take in the clan boss, so you don't want to stack HP because that slam and stun that the clan boss does do is based off of your champion's HP, so the more health you have, the more damage you will take. Another interesting fact for you is you actually don't need attack down on the boss during the stun because it doesn't affect it, since it is HP based and not attack based. So as we can see here, to kind of close things off here, I know this has kind of been a longer video and I tried to keep it as short as possible. Final cliff note is consider book costs on an account to account basis. Some people spend money, some people don't spend money, so don't just look at this list and say, I can use all the information from this list to best advise myself. Keep that book cost in consideration when doing this. Look at how many books the champions take, if you have them booked or not, if you're using them in other aspects of the game. All of this matters, so this list is going to be different for everybody. Where you might see something is going to be the best in your opinion, it's probably not going to be the best for everyone else. Actually, I would say extremely unlikely that everyone else is going to agree with you on which is the best, which is the worst. This is just here to let you know your best options, in my opinion, who you can use, who you can't use. Now, there are more attack down champions that don't have attack down on the A1. They are much less consistent than these, since counterattack is a very common skill to have. Even with speed teams, you're getting so many extra turns that it's best not to risk not having it on the A1 unless you're stacking two champions that applies it with a separate skill with the cooldown. So once again, to reiterate the point, book value is different for everybody. Keep that in mind when making your decision. Some champions can be a hefty investment. Some champions require book gambling, meaning you have to use some books and hope it lands in certain areas and you're not really concerned about others. So keep all of that in mind. Let me know what you guys think of this list. Did I miss anybody? Does anyone here stand out to you that didn't stand out to you before this video? Let me know in the comment section. As always, guys, if you enjoyed this content, smash that like button, subscribe, turn on the notification bells, and I will see you all in my next video.